Mr. Grimes, mathematics teacher, is displeased with the progress of his 9th grade class in mathematics.
You see what low grades you made on your weekly mathematics test? More than half of you failed. Most of those who passed just got by. Nobody had 100%. This is the poorest class I've had in a long, long time. Most of you have no foundation at all. Now, the trouble's with your attitude. You don't pay enough attention in class. You don't do enough work outside of it. You don't know what the word study means. You haven't the slightest idea.
Getting ready for school. I remember Boo. It's yours, you can have Boo, you can eat, believe it.
Thank you.
It's tough because we can afford to live in New York. I mean, if people had apartments here already. Morning.
Morning, yeah.
Okay, this is where we're going to leave our stuff. Our base of operations. After 30 years, I finally got an office, so to speak. This was this was the storeroom of the townhouse. It was it was our tool shed. This is my office. Is that a nice Mughal sword we dug up? You can hold it. So this to me, and I did not place it here, represents the essence of teaching. It's what underlies the archaeology program, but I think underlines the Dalton philosophy.
Our real mission is, no matter who you are, no matter where you came from, no matter your socioeconomic or religious status, our job as teachers is to help each child move forward. And we have such incredible diversity here, that's an ongoing challenge.
Dalton is still one of the best, is one of the hardest schools to get into. I think honestly it's at Harvard rate. It's harder to get into than an Ivy League almost at this point. It doesn't mean people still aren't knocking down our door. People still want to come, so maybe that's saying something too.
I think the Dalton is one unique in the degree of independence teachers are given in creating and constructing a curriculum. So the archaeology program is essentially I was essentially brought in to teach the archaeology program and given tremendous amount of discretion on how we set up the program. I think it's emphasis on giving students the ability to think creatively, to work independently, to, as our school motto is, to go forth unafraid, to give them both the skills and the opportunities to develop those skills, to develop that independence. Welcome to my classroom. Each of the third grade houses, which is what we call our classes, as part of their social studies unit, excavate an archaeological site related to the age of exploration. The sites are chosen in conjunction with the house teachers, so it reflects their interests as well as my own interest. Then we create I can create a physical simulation. Putting on, this is my coveralls after my first couple of years of teaching archaeology. My wife told me that if I ruin another pair of clothes, I'll have to go in my birthday suit. So I realized that coveralls are ideal for working, especially with younger students, working when they're digging.
I'm going to do
I have Chase and Hannah as washer. I have David and Corinna at excavator. I have Arjun at screen. Where's Arjun? A screener. I have Broom Boy and Ava recorder.
Oh, can I do the broom boy?
Let me get the broom in a second. Let everybody start.
I know where it is.
Meanwhile, you can dig while you're waiting. Arjun, you alright?
Oh gosh. Oh, right there.
I lowered it. Move it. What was that, Jackson?
People don't. We don't have a
Oh, I can't have it.
Yes, we do.
And what job are you doing?
Excavator. I get to watch the next thing.
So what's your job as excavator?
You just like dig. You dig with your hands and your knees. No, you don't. You dig with. Oh, you found something. Yeah. I need the mapper logger to.
Once an artifact has been excavated, it is mapped and logged. As of this year, actually, we're using iPads to map and log the artifacts.
So cool. Is that an iPad?
Yeah.
Wow.
What square? Are you filming? This is square.
Yep.
Oh, that's the one that I actually uncovered that yesterday.
Where?
So what's your job?
I wash it.
You know what that is?
No idea.
Basically to see if there are any items inside left when they dig, like small ones.
Once the artifact is mapped and logged, it's taken over to the recording station, which is right behind me. And on the recording station, the artifact is bagged.
Guys, washer! Washer!
I'll give it to the washer.
I got it.
Start Wednesday.
Can you It's a Buddha. It's our 9th one.
We really take the time with whatever material we're introducing how to use, that it's the child's voice and to honor the work they need to do, not what we think they should be doing. We'll teach them how to mix paint and explore with brushes, but their imagery and their mark making and their ideas is what's the most important.
That is incredibly important for me in my class because it is an artistic thing and not everyone is artistic.
We try to design our lessons in a way that the kids are coming to the conclusions, coming to the information that we want them to have organically and on their own, and being able to take those steps through a hands-on process instead of us standing at the front of the room saying, oh, this is what you need to know, here's the information, memorize it, write it down. And I think it's a more fun way to learn, and I think it helps them learn it much more strongly.
And for a student to find where their strengths are, where their interests are, they're not following a narrow focus.
Meanwhile, these more advanced young builders have their own design for a house. And then perhaps they decide they like to paint, in which case they're not given detailed pictures to color, but are left to express themselves just as they feel at the moment.
Is Friday a half day? Yes. Huh? That's even more surprising. Is that going to be Laura, this is our final article. Is that going to be Is Friday a half day? Yes.
Well, look for another idea. Where else could he go now? It teaches just about everything. which kind of astonished me. When I first started teaching chess, I thought, well, surely this will help with their mathematical thinking and probably their reading, because the same process that you use to decode a chess position is the same sort of process that you use for reading. What astonished me was how it changed their emotional development, because there's a lot of stresses when you play a game of chess. It's a win, lose, or draw scenario, and you can't blame anybody else for what went wrong, and nobody else gets the credit for what went right. It really puts kids on the edge for how you deal with adversity, how you overcome obstacles, how you think through a problem. And so you end up with all of these intellectual skills of analyzing positions, seeing a sequence of things to get a different outcome, cause and effect, if this then that kind of reasoning. There's a tremendous number of thinking skills that go into it. How you respond to the difficult situations is fantastic for your emotional development. You learn how to lose with dignity, and you learn how to win with dignity, or at least in my program you do.
A willingness to fail. I think the hardest thing for a student is to learn that you only succeed by trying at something, and you may not necessarily succeed initially. You may not succeed. I think the worst thing in American education now is students are so focused on the goal, on the end of the race, that they put themselves in a place that is comfortable and they know they'll be successful, and they don't really spread their wings. I mean, that's, you want your students to feel. I mean, the great thing about the archaeology is that I can tell them, when you do an archaeological excavation, there is a correct answer. You'll never be able to establish completely that you've gotten that correct answer. You can advance a logical argument, you can try to account for all the data that you've accrued, but you'll never know for certain that that was actually what occurred on the site that you're excavating.
You need to have a square piece of paper, so what you do is you make a square with a triangle like this, and that way you have a perfect square. You see that perfect square? But to make sure, I'll show you. So that's what you need to do. See, because two triangles together make a perfect square, right? And so you have this. All you have to do is fold it and use scissors, or you can just tear. And that is how you get a square. And that's how you make your origami. So you can use any paper. Does that make sense to you?
Grinch?
Yeah, it's the Grinch. Something that I've been trying out that the kids have been doing really well, when you're a little bit nervous about reading, when you're early, you can read to a friend.
What,
Superman. This is Superman. You got that, Grinch? So then they can practice and they feel a little bit more confident. Because stuffed animals don't judge you, not even this guy. Unlike other schools, we have library classes for every single class at in the lower school. So kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and third grade all have one class a week. About 20 to 30 minutes of that class, we do read-alouds, we do research, we do information literacy. I teach gender dysphoria to kindergarten. The last 10 minutes of every library class is for checkout. And that has to do with the Dalton Plan that we discussed. So it's finding something you're interested in, having time to get the thing you're interested in, having an adult help you with that thing that you're interested in.
Even here in first program, we had a student who last year told us she was really interested in learning more about animals. And so she actually came and talked to us on her own. This first grader, she wanted to start a wildlife club here at first program. So, you know, we helped her do that, but the idea came from her. So I think even from a really young age, you can see sort of the students taking ownership of their interests and trying to put that interest into use in different ways. So I hope that when they leave here, they carry that with them to college and beyond.
We'll have high school students who will do independent studies on archaeology or military history. I'm currently working with a 12th grade student who is interested in Roman military history. This is a student I taught in 3rd grade. I taught him in 6th grade. Now I have an opportunity to work with him in 12th grade following his interest And if the student was interested in art or in ceramic making or photography, similarly, there's faculty here who are able to, and within the structure of the schedule, able to meet with the student and further develop those interests.
To give them permission to trust themselves and their ideas, to take chances, to be as independent as possible, to be able to make the choices they need for their art making.
Each child is allowed to take home 1 book. In kindergarten and first grade and second grade you get 2 books, in third grade you get 3 books, and so on and so forth, because it teaches you responsibility and you get to explore something you like.
What our founder Helen Parkhurst did was set up an entire philosophy for how education can work with students and their families to really cultivate a lifelong passion for learning and curiosity and service to others. And she wrote it down in a book, and we continue to use that. We call it the plan.
We have something called the Dolphin Plan, which is when you have an interest in something and you create an assignment for yourself. Assignment's one of the 3 parts. Then you have a lab to research this assignment and figure out what this assignment's going to be. And then you also have house, where you have a house advisor who will help you figure out more things about the assignment and also direct you, because doing research on your own can be a little bit difficult, but having someone to guide you is really important. Plus you have a classroom full of students that'll help you too.
We continue to use that to help guide us in our mission.
I think we try to individualize as far as possible to meet the students' needs and interests, to provide a wide range of learning experiences so the student is not only exposed to, but can find something which really engages them.
There's usually a material that they're working with, but how they work with it is their own. But this particular project is specific. It's a tile that they make, an actual tile, and an image, which is usually encouraged to be something personal, which will then be adhered to the wall, so that as they leave this division, they will always have a piece of themselves here so that they can come back and visit.
They design and make their own tile, and it's placed somewhere in the building. And look, all the buildings on the first program, our Early Childhood Education Center, are decorated with these tiles.
Do you think it's symbolic for something?
It's their choice of what they want. For some it's symbolic, some it shows their interests. Each student has an opportunity to express themselves individually and creatively. We have a flexibility. The school can say we will have an archaeology program, and it's not being in any standardized test. They're not going to be asked any questions about archaeology, but the school recognizes its value for teaching the students creative thinking, the opportunity to introduce the students and develop further their expository writing skills, to develop visual literary skills. And unlike a public school, we have the flexibility to say this is valuable to the curriculum, let's incorporate it into the curriculum. And we're not answerable to some narrow set of criteria that has been established by bureaucrats who've never set foot in the classroom.
As a teacher at Dalton, we are given quite a bit of freedom in creating our curriculum. And for me, that I'm sort of inventing my own thing here, because I'm a dance teacher and a theater teacher I don't teach dance steps, and I don't really teach discrete theater techniques, but rather I use the ideas of dance and use the ideas of theater to help my students illuminate their other curricular learning while learning life skills at the same time. That's such a unique, not strange, but a wonderful combination of things that happen in my class.
We always start with what the learning goals are. So what is it that we want our students to be able to do? And then we choose the best tools. And so sometimes those tools might be pencil and paper. But now with the iPads, it just opens up so many more possibilities, especially to work with photography and video and animation. So the technology really provides so many more opportunities, not only for students to assess their own learning, certainly their teachers can do it.
We definitely try, especially up here where everything is so hands-on, we try not to let the technology take over or do the teaching for us, because we really want the kids to to get that hands-on experience. You can see right in the classroom we have the mystery powders set up and the field scopes, and they're going to be doing drawings by hand, and I think that's really exciting, especially for kids at this age.
My colleagues and I work directly with teachers and students in their classrooms to integrate technology into the curriculum.
Schools so far are still tragically isolated and provincial, and we need to catch up.
For an archaeologist, there's nothing more exciting than digging.
They will, in fact, be able to reconstruct a historical narrative of their own.
Well, what we're doing is simulation, and we're mapping our artifacts and the wall we found on this grid, so that if we find something that relates to another artifact, we can go back, look at the map, say, hey, this bell looks like another one we found.
In learning about the past or learning about any phenomenon, one doesn't look at a single attribute or single artifact. One has to amass a number of objects and make inferences of those and construct a database.
Well, we have to dig up every single place, and that takes a long time considering that we find a lot of artifacts.
We're trying to figure out what happened here, what this whole place is.
And even though the students realize it is a simulation, it has been constructed as an educational tool, it becomes real to them. If I had lectured 3 weeks or 6 weeks on a series, the students would have never remembered more than a fraction of what I had told them.
The fear is always that we're going to lose the kids to this tunnel vision, this locked-in vision into another TV tube. And we find that when we're most successful in deploying the technology in a classroom, the kids are actually away from the computer more than they're at the computer. If you go in there on a typical day, there's probably half or a third of the class in there. The rest of the kids have fanned out throughout the school to go find things that are necessary for their investigation.
We're here to teach the students what it is to learn. And when you see the students becoming so excited, and we see them so involved in the learning and so passionate about what they're doing, then as a teacher, I feel that I fulfilled my duty. This is what I want to do as a teacher. Motivate the student to become a self-learner.
All the students take chess.
What is the most efficient way to checkmate this guy right now?
I teach chess, and what I like to say is that I'm teaching children how to succeed through the medium of chess. And it's a multi-pronged approach. We do chess in the morning before school starts, and that's just like half an hour, 40 minutes before school starts. Every day the kids come in and they get a lesson. Then in the classroom once a week for every kindergartner, first grader, and second grader. And then we do tournaments on weekends.
And our museum program makes a number of trips to various museums, and working with our museum personnel, our full-time staff personnel, who help the students understand the artifacts that we recovered. We also bring in an armorer, so that the classes actually see how armor is made. He sets up a working forge, and the students have an opportunity to decorate a piece of armor.
And what are your best and brightest memories of your time at Dalton?
There are so many. I loved this school. First thing that comes to mind is Mr. Goldberg's archaeology program, which was so fascinating to me, and we got to sift through layers of dirt and bring it into the art room and shake it up and find fossils and chart it. And Dalton has this wonderful approach of using every subject to understand material in front of you. So that archaeology program was art and math and literacy and everything all in one. And you don't realize it at the time, but it's a wonderful way to learn.
I'm looking at things from an art point of view, but what I'm looking at in my art is math and social studies and literacy and music and visual art. Those subjects kind of all mixed together in this one beautiful kind of cauldron. All of the curriculum in my class is connected to the curriculum in other classes. So it's another way for them to look at their learning, but through an arts lens and through a kinesthetic arts lens, particularly with the dance.
We have a art program, a very rigorous art program. By the time they're in high school, the students have a choice of 22 electives in art, in visual arts alone. We have dance, we have theater.
Music is, to me, very beautiful. But this music, I want you now not to dance the way I tell you to dance, or how I want you to just to dance how the music feels. So I want you to find moves in your body. Listen, just listen. And you're showing with your bodies what this music sounds like. You know how they've got. I want you to play an imaginary guitar. So I want you to put the guitar in your hand. Play that. Now dance how this music is sounding. Sound a little like. My name is Justin Greer, and I am the dance and theater specialist here at the Dolphin School in the first program. I teach kindergarten to 3rd grade, and this is the beginning of my 3rd year as a full-time teacher. However, I was a teaching artist here for 6 years before I entered the faculty. The main thing that I want kids to get is an understanding of life skills, determination, cooperation, flexibility, risk-taking. These things in this class can be practiced and can be exercised. And I think that there's actually a lot of adults in this world that could have used this kind of exercise or this practice of life skills, because it's something that they're going to use for their entire time as a student here at Dalton, and then as a productive human in the world.
Well, I like to think that the chess program is just one component of a great many other phenomenal things that happen here. But I think that it must be a significant contribution to the way the children think, the way they process information, the way they deal with incoming information, and their emotional development, as I said, is to me, that's actually the most important, and I didn't realize that when I first started teaching, is that it would help their emotional intelligence every bit as much as it helped any other part of their thinking.
They really are trying to get the students here to like you said, be independent thinkers, to really be self-motivated.
I think that our kids have a lot of creative freedom. They're at an age right now that is very, very, very free, and they should be given opportunities to explore that freedom, which happens in this class.
I think it's critical. I think that you have a degree of confidence, a love of learning. We've had one student who helped develop a cure for or a treatment for pancreatic cancer, who's now in her 3rd year at Yale. She had cancer, she survived it, and has. So you see what these students have done, and now actually students who've come back and sent their children here. You'll meet today one of the children that I taught, whose father I taught. It's remarkable, to have, I think that's a vote of confidence in the school when the parents send their children back. Not only they may come back and teach, but actually this is where they choose to send their children.
I love this school. My daughter is here now in kindergarten, and I keep saying if I could build a school around my daughter. I would build the Dalton School. Everything about it, the feeling I get inside the building, the whole person that it makes me, and hopefully my daughter.
What do you think makes Dalton unique? What sets it apart from other schools?
Oh my goodness, so many things. We're a really diverse community in so many ways.
This is a map that shows where the students in one of the third grade houses, where they come from.
We've been doing a lot of work with race and equity recently, as far as, well, this might be news to you actually. Something that Dalton noticed was how homogenous, how white a lot of our students were, and they wanted it to reflect New York City. That's kind of in our mission. And so these past 2 grades, kindergarten and first grade, are 50% students of color, and that will continue until half of the student body are students of color. And in doing so, we go through equity training and workshops with our students to the point that when we have now people that have graduated, and when they read things about what's happening in the news, and when they see Black Lives Matter, they actually already have a basis of knowledge for it. They understand what white privilege is, and Dalton gave them that. So part of every school's mission is to prepare your students for the world outside of school, in college and in life. And I think that, at least in that instance for sure, we did a really good job, that they feel comfortable knowing things that their classmates didn't know, that they hadn't had access to. This is, like, Black Lives Matter is such news to so many people, but it's not here.
We use a term in education called differentiated learning, which is where you create curriculum where the children will rise to whatever level they're at this moment. So you're not trying to get everyone to do the same thing, you're just trying to get everyone to experience the lesson in their way that is most comfortable for them.
Dalton is unique in a gazillion ways. I mean, I look at my colleagues and I'm blown away. I look at the administration and I'm blown away. I've seen hundreds of schools. I've been in education for years. I've seen many, many schools as an advisor, as a supervisor, and as a teacher.
I make these open-ended lessons that allow the kids to rise to the job, whatever that might be, and they will feel like they are experiencing something profound and artistic, whether they're profound artists or not.
I think what's really great about it is that even with these really young kids that we work with here, 5-year-olds through 9-year-olds essentially, even with such young kids, we get the opportunity to focus on the fundamentals of science and what it takes to conduct an experiment, a controlled experiment, a fair test is what we call it, which then means that whatever they're curious about, whatever they want to know in their lives now or in the future, they can really use those tools.
I am constantly amazed. Sometimes the kids come up with moves that I didn't see. Sometimes I'll be analyzing a game and I will say, well, did you think about this? And they say, sometimes they will say, yes, I did, but I didn't want to do that because. And they'll have thought through a whole sequence.
Yeah, that might have even been a better move than the bishop move, because then you would have had pressure against my queen and king right down here. Remember that? Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. Beautiful.
We work on language that helps them become critical thinkers. I think we create really insightful observers. They're asked to look carefully at art. In this particular room, it's moving art and speaking art. But they're asked to look at it carefully and to try to understand for themselves what they think works and what it doesn't work.
It can give children a sense of confidence that their ideas are important, that people are different.
So much about sharing and learning and helping others do that, and so this is a great place for that to happen because we're doing that already. So technology is just going to enable us to connect even more and learn and discover with people from various different disciplines in a way that we haven't been able to before.
We are so interconnected as a society now that our education should also be thusly connected.
In 3 words, what the students at Dalton get from this type of education?
3 words would be difficult.
I mean, 3 individual, like...
Well, 3. Independence, passion, skills. So an independence to work on their own, a passion, a love of learning, a love of excitement, and the skills necessary to be successful. You want that foundation of skills, scaffold that foundation, and then give them an opportunity to grow.
Children borrow their own weight in books every year, and not every school will allow that, but I'm glad that we do.
I take a lot of pride in what I teach, and teaching the scientific method and how to think critically and logically, and trying to counteract some of the fear-mongering that happens. I think that can be counteracted by having a scientifically literate population. So I feel very lucky to get to teach an environment like this to students that I hope will go out and make a difference and be scientific thinkers, even if they don't pursue science as a career.
But I think the very best thing Dalton taught me was access to my teachers as complete people and not just your teacher. So you're encouraged to have these labs with your teachers to get to know them. They get to know you personally. And it continued with me for the rest of my life. So when I went to college, I went to a big college, but I always introduced myself to professors and got to know them, made meetings with them, and it seemed like no other student was doing that because they hadn't learned to do that when they were younger. At my wedding, I had 3 college professors there, and my friends couldn't believe it that I would invite a college professor to my wedding, but I feel access to authority figures, bosses, and teachers to get to know them.
I think you are able to explore more at Dalton, at least from what I've experienced, than at other schools, just because you are given an entire subject to create your own class. I kind of think of lab and house assignment as its own subject, because then you get to make your, can you imagine, I don't know, if you're clearly interested in filmmaking and you say something to the effect of, by the end of the year, I'm gonna make a documentary, period. And then you have the rest of the year to figure out what subject, how to film it, who's going to help you, what budgeting is, what fundraising is, and then after that, at the end of the year, after working so hard, you'll actually have that finished project. Can you imagine making, and then, having a grade on that, and you have something that's yours that you created, that's a wonderful thing that maybe not other people are able to do.
That is something that no other school has. And of course will play out in different ways throughout the centuries, but we can always go back to those tenets of having an excitement of learning with others and going out and spreading that passion to others.
Educators have a lot of responsibilities, and one of the responsibilities that we have, especially librarians, because we have this whole breadth of literature behind us, is we try to find materials that will interest our students. But then we also have the responsibility of introducing things to our students that they don't know about. And so instead of finding out about it through tragedies, through news, imagine if the first time you heard about Islam would be September 11th, and that would be a terrible introduction to Islam, because that's the first thing you've ever heard is a horrible act, but that's not representative of the culture. So I think it's a very personal responsibility, or it's a very professional, personal, emotional responsibility to introduce students to something in the most realistic and all-encompassing way. So if they don't know about gender fluid, which they probably don't, then making them aware of it, and as they get older, refining it and opening their knowledge more so that they don't feel left out. They don't feel, because if they also identify with it, then it speaks to somebody, and if they don't identify with it, then it's not weird for them. When you're experiencing something kinesthetically, you really get it programmed into the fiber of your being. So that's what that sort of says. For some people, they can sit and listen and understand information, and for other people, when they get up and do it, that's when they get it. And hopefully that is the thing that happens in this class for some of those kinds of students.
If you could describe the school in one word, what would it be?
In one word. Complete.
Why?
Sort of just what I was saying in the beginning, that you don't realize along the way that you're really being taught in 3D.
It's your responsibility not to read the textbook. It becomes your responsibility to write the textbook. Unfortunately, for most education, it's I'll memorize what's the fact or I'll memorize the argument. And what I don't see is what is the reasoning that lies behind the argument. And that is the key to real education.
When a kid finds something that they love at the end of a read aloud, and they can find things by that author or find things by that subject, it's a magical thing, because then they're not just reading to learn how to read, they're reading because they want to read, because they want to learn more things. And what I love about libraries is that it gives them that time to actually find something that they're interested in. I got a question the other day. I want a book about animals. All right, let's think about an animal. I'm going to name some. Shark, monkey, tiger, shark. I'm like, okay. So let's go to the shark section. So they go through the shark section. They find something like, oh my gosh, what is this? It's a hammerhead. Oh my gosh. And so now they think, now I've heard them saying, I want to be a marine biologist, because they got to read this book about sharks. It helps them find something that they're interested in, and they get to choose it. Nobody tells them, this is what you're going to do for a living. They have the option, they get to explore. I think that's what library does. That's really great. It gives them that option.
I feel very lucky to teach here. Most of my friends are teachers, and most of them are teachers in public schools. And I think the work that they're doing is incredible, and I really respect them for what they do. But I see how hard it is just not to have the support, and not just the financial support, I mean there's that too, but also just the support from the administration, and making sure that the people here feel good about their jobs.
And I don't know that there's another school that has the foresight to understand how important that is.
Because ultimately, I think what's so hard about being a teacher is that the work you're doing is hard, and it can oftentimes feel very thankless. And if you don't have that support from the people around you that you work with, that can be really difficult.
And that's the thing that's most missing in American education today.
I've seen many, many schools as an advisor, as a supervisor, and as a teacher. I've never seen any place like this.